The first time it happened, I thought it was an accident. Tire tracks, deep and ugly, slashed across the marigolds. I stood there in my bathrobe at 6 o'clock in the morning, the coffee cooling in my hand, staring at the wreckage like it was a lifeless body. You don't just plant flowers, you invest in them. You bury your hands deep in the soil, sweat dripping into the roots, you name them, talk to them, love them. They were the only things that grew after she left. Her name was Claire, my ex-wife. 9 years of marriage, and that kind of history doesn't just disappear. It festers inside you, like something buried that refuses to stay dead. 6 months after the divorce papers were signed, she married him. Darren, his name. Broad-shouldered, no neck, the type of man who smiles with his teeth but never with his eyes. He drove a monstrous black truck, loud and stupid, the kind that screams attention. The second time he tore through my garden, I saw the tail lights. It wasn't an accident. I knocked on her door 3 days later, calm, polite, still smelling of rosemary and rage. She opened it, dressed in silk, always silk now, as if she had developed an allergy to cotton. Darren stood behind her, that arrogant smirk on his face, like someone had dared him to care. I told her what he'd done, twice. Her lips curled into a laugh, high and cruel. Men will be men, she said, tilting her head against his chest like I was some toddler whining over spilled milk. Then she added, my new husband is a real man. That was the moment. Not the flowers, not the truck, but the way she said it, like I was small, like I was a mistake she'd outgrown. I left without another word, but something inside me shifted. I stopped tending the garden. Let the petals fall. And I started watching. On the 5th night I couldn't sleep. I stood by the window, rain tracing slow lines down the glass. The street was empty, silent. Then at 2:13 a.m. the engine roared. The truck came barreling down the lane, swerving hard into my yard. This time he didn't just clip the edge. He aimed for it. He flattened the fence, destroyed the tulips, leaving mud and splinters everywhere. Then as quickly as he came, he was gone. I stood in the dark, my chest hollow, my heart full. He had declared war, and all I had ever done was grow flowers. The next morning I cleaned up, not the garden but the mess. I buried it, dug deep into the earth, and laid steel beneath the soil, hidden just below the surface like quiet teeth. I wired the gate, reinforced the posts, and right in the center I installed a strip of tire spikes, the kind you find behind warehouses. The trap was elegant, silent, ruthless. He came again, of course. Some men can't resist their own arrogance. 1:47 a.m. the headlights blazed through the night, the engine snarling. I had something to prove. I sat in the dark, whiskey in one hand, the window cracked open, the cold air mixing with the faint smell of earth and rain. The truck roared down the street, tires hissing as it hit the spikes. For a moment, everything went still. Then came the ear-splitting scream of rubber tearing, followed by the sickening crunch of steel, and finally the awful sound of his scream, a sound so raw it made my bones ache. I stepped outside, barefoot, the chill of the night seeping into my skin. Darren lay on the ground, one leg twisted beneath him, the other soaked in something that wasn't rain. The spikes had done their job and more. His tires had been shredded, but his body had paid the price too. He tried to kick the gate down, but it wouldn't give. The reinforced post had snapped back like a spring-loaded jaw, trapping him. He looked up at me, blood mixing with the mud, confusion and pain in his eyes. "For all you psycho, what the hell did you do?" he gasped. Claire arrived 10 minutes later. A neighbor must have called her. She came running, barefoot, her robe flying open, panic in her eyes. She stopped dead when she saw the wreckage. The truck collapsed into my rose bed, Darren howling in the mud. Her face went pale as she took in the scene. She turned to me, her expression twisted with disbelief, like she was seeing me for the first time. You did this?" I didn't answer. I simply stepped aside, letting the scene speak for itself. The broken fence, the devastation of the garden, the heavy silence hanging between us. She swayed, hand pressed to her mouth in shock, and then, as if her knees could no longer hold her, she collapsed beside him, her breath coming in sharp, panicked gasps. The sound of sirens soon followed. The police arrived. Darren was taken to the hospital. No charges, nothing illegal. He'd been trespassing. I'd fortified my own property, that was all. One of the officers looked at me with a flicker of respect in his eyes. "Not illegal," he said, his voice almost approving. "Just smart." Claire never came back. Not to apologize, not to explain. A week later I saw a moving truck outside their place. 2 weeks later their house was empty. I replanted the garden slowly, carefully, one row at a time. Lavender, snapdragons, black-eyed Susans. Flowers that take their time to bloom, flowers that don't wilt in the cold. Sometimes I think about her, about them, about the way she laughed, the way he screamed, how everything they thought they were, everything they tried to build, came undone in a single night. But mostly I think about the quiet. The peace. The fence still stands, the flowers are blooming again. Some things once ruined don't come back the same. They come back stronger.